Hey, everybody, and welcome once again to Nose in the Book, a Bible reading commentary with me, your host, Pastor Justin Van Reed. So great to have you with me as we take a look at 4.5 more chapters of the Word of God. We have before us in our reading today 1 Chronicles chapters 9 and 10, Hebrews chapter 12, Amos chapter 6, and Luke chapter 1, verses 39 through 80. If you have any questions or comments about these readings, please feel free to post those in the comments section below. Otherwise, let's take a look at what we've got here. In 1 Chronicles chapter 9 and 10, we've basically come to the end of the genealogy that opened the first 8 chapters of the book. We do have a lot more names here in chapter 9, but now, as it says here, all Israel was listed in the genealogical records in the book of the kings of Israel, and the people of Judah were exiled to Babylon because they were unfaithful to the Lord. So, this clearly tells us here at the beginning of 1 Chronicles chapter 9 that Chronicles has a setting which is post-exilic. Second Chronicles is going to end with the announcement to return. So we know that that had already happened. And here we get in First Chronicles chapter 9 that the exile has in fact happened. So what's to come here in the book about Saul and then David really, and then the kings after David, especially Judah, is not something to tell us that this was like currently going on, but this is to explain to us how we got to where we are and what the future holds. And so here we read that the reason for exile, how we got here, is because of unfaithfulness to the Lord. But here we read of already returning exiles. And so this is, going to be similar to like what you would have in Ezra and Nehemiah, time period wise, where you have a number of families that had been exiled to Babylon that are now allowed to return. And listed here, you have various clans, and with the focus being on the Levites and the priests here. It says among the priests who returned were Jediah, Jehoiarib, Jachin, and it goes on here to describe the priestly families that return here, with 1,760 priests returning, responsible, as it says, for ministering at the house of God. And then it lists the rest of the Levites outside of just the priestly family that also returned. And so then you have this all listed down. These, remember, Levites were those who took care of the worship of Israel, the tabernacle, and the priests would do the had the specific job, regarding the sacrifices, but the Levites did basically everything else administratively with the tabernacle here and worship and music and all that. Then you have here the focus again on Saul, because chapter 10 is going to record here for us the death of King Saul. So you have Saul's family tree at the end of chapter 9, and then into chapter 10 you have the battle of the Israel versus the Philistines when Saul was actually killed. And here, just as you would read at the end of 1 Samuel, so you have here that Saul tells his armor bearer, "Take your sword and kill me before these pagan Philistines come to taunt and torture me." But his armor bearer, of course, was afraid to do it, so Saul takes his own sword and fell on it. And just as again that's recorded there at the end of 1 Samuel, the army of Israel flees, abandons, and the Philistines move in and occupy their towns. And then they take Saul and they find his body here, and they strip off his arm and they cut off his head, and they proclaim that Saul is dead before their idols in the land of Philistia in the temple Dagon. It says, but when everyone in Jabesh Gilead heard what had happened, they went and rescued Saul's body, just as what we read again first at the end of 1 Samuel. And so Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He failed to obey the Lord's command, so he even consulted a medium, the witch of Endor, instead of asking the Lord for guidance. So the Lord killed him and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. And of course, this is where the focus is going to lie as we go through the rest of First Chronicles. All right, turn to the New Testament then, Hebrews chapter 12, and you had coming off of the great faith chapter, chapter 11 here, right after he lists out all these great men and women of faith down through the Old Testament history here, saying that they were looking forward, they were looking, for that eternal future to come. And he says, therefore, right, since we're surrounded by such this huge crowd of witnesses, all the saints that have gone before us to the life of faith here, Let us strip off every weight that slows us down and the sin that trips us up. Let us run with endurance, focused here, the race God has set before us. And here we go with our eyes on the Lord. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus. He says the champion who initiates and perfects our faith, because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and now is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up, because he's saying, again, the endurance that's needed, that forward look. He says Jesus did that. All the saints have done that. And so now this is where we got to fix our eyes on Jesus. Keep our eyes on the prize, on the goal here, so that in the midst of our persecution, whatever suffering we face, we'll keep on going. And he talks here about the discipline of the Lord, right? God treats his children just like a perfect, loving father would treat their children, showing them love and discipline, right? So that the discipline of the Lord, right? He corrects us because he loves us and he wants us to obey him. He knows what is best for us, right? Sometimes we think that God is punishing us, that God is just kind of willy-nilly out there like mad because of our sin, but God knows what is right for us. And so he's guiding us into what is good for us, right? Just like a father would tell their son not to, not to run to the street. God knows what is right and good for us. And, when there's disobedience, there's not punishment for the sake of punishment, but for correction so that right will come for the good of the people and for the glory of God. He says that just as you discipline your children, so your heavenly Father disciplines you for your good. Yeah, it's painful for a while it's happening, but afterward there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. And so then he goes on here with some other instructions, and then this beautiful description of how we've come not to this fearful, terrifying sight like in the Old Covenant, right, with the mountain quaking and all of that. He says, no, but we've come to the heavenly Jerusalem, to this joyful gathering and the assembly of all of God's people. And he says, you've come to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant. And he says, so be careful, right? So this is what you've got. Be careful you don't refuse to listen to the one who is speaking, just like Israel did. He says, no. He says, since we're receiving a kingdom that's unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping him, for our God is a devouring fire, a consuming fire. All right, Amos chapter 6 here. Again, more description on the judgment, the sin that's in Israel and Judah during that period, and the judgment coming on them. It says, what sorrow awaits you, right? Jerusalem, Samaria, the capitals of the northern and southern kingdom. He says, look around, right? Look at the people in Calna. Look at the Hamath. Look at Gath. He says, look how they were destroyed. Judgment came upon them just as it's going to come upon you. He says, you think that you've got it so great. You ignore the Lord, and then you just, have this abundance, and you enjoy your abundance, and yet you neglect God. And he says, the sovereign Lord says, I despise that arrogance of Israel and their fortresses. I will give the city and everything in it to their enemies. And so this is what's coming for them. All right, Luke chapter 1, verses 39 to 80 here. So we get to the second half of this chapter. And it starts with Mary after having gotten this news. Remember, so far in chapter 1, Elizabeth, Zechariah and Elizabeth got news of having a son. Now Mary has gotten news about having a son. And so now Mary visits her relative Elizabeth. They're both pregnant together. And John is born while there. But, while together here, it says that at the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's child leaped within her. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. And then Mary has this song of praise here. It sounds very much like Hannah's song in 1 Samuel chapter 1. Extolling the Lord, exalting the Lord for the recognition of a humble servant, the humility of the person and the exaltation of God. And then John is born, we read here, Zechariah, who had been mute, now can speak when he says his name is John. It's a confirmation, or he believes the word of the angel. And then he has his own song or prophecy that he gives here, recognizing that this isn't just any child, but clearly this is what we've been waiting for, the promise of God to our ancestors, to the prophets, to David, right? This is the one we've been waiting for, and John is going to be this one who goes before. So he says, "My son," he says, "you will be called the prophet of the Most High. You'll prepare the way for the Lord and tell people how to find salvation." So that's all we have time for today. Again, we had 1 Chronicles 9 and 10, Hebrews chapter 12, Amos chapter 6, and Luke 1, 39 through 80. Hope you enjoy your time in the Lord's Word today. Do just as Hebrews 12 says, fix your eyes on Jesus and keep your nose in the book. We'll see you again soon.